there. For those of you who are designing the synthesis question, I just wanted to kind of walk you through the process of how to design it, what to do, and how to think about this project. So, the first thing I suggest is think about this project in two ways. One, it's a chance for you to explore the multiple sides of a conversation that exists that the crucible is a part of, like things like standing up against people who misuse power, um, the idea of truth and honesty. Who should we trust? Who should we put our trust into? And if we do put our trusts into a person, how do they then become trustworthy? There's lots of others. Um, so you would pick one of those topics and then find articles that show us the varied sides of this particular conversation that exists that the crucible kind of is a part of. So the crucible kind of serves as your exigence to a topic that this synthesis essay will be about. But your connection can be wide and varied. It doesn't have to be about witch hunts, it things like that. You can have, as long as you can make a connection to something, because books have so much meaning going on, and this is a very heavily layered text. Um, you know, you can most likely find a link to the Crucible. Now, the project itself has you get into the head of the synthesis question. So every synthesis question begins this way. This will be the first page. And it begins with background, then it moves into the prompt, and then it moves into the sources and listing how to use them. And then there's usually 6 to 8 sources that follow, okay? The sources always show multiple sides. So always think of the synthesis like a conversation. And so each of the sources within the packet will help you respond to the question. And so it does need to be multiple sides. So if you agree, disagree, or qualify, you have sources to kind of hold on to and dig into. You can use some for counter argument and some to support. Okay. So the idea of the sources is they become your evidence. So remember, in the rhetorical analysis essay, your evidence comes straight from the passage. For your synthesis, the evidence that you're using to develop your claim comes from the sources themselves. Okay, and they all kind of range, but you want to keep them one page. So if you find a really long article, you can take a section of it. You have to have some type of visual. It can be a chart, it can be a political cartoon, it can be an image, it can be a piece of art. The idea too is to keep your topic non-controversial. You may be thinking about something that causes a lot of controversy, but you have to ground it in a way that you're presenting it in with a respect towards the sensitivity of the issue. So you have to kind of ground it so that no one can get offended. It's not one of those topics that just everybody gets really kind of emotional about. Like, you don't want your piece to be about, is abortion right or wrong? Okay. You want it to be a little more, I guess the best word I can come up with is mundane. So that anyone who's writing this, they aren't, having these angry, emotional responses to the question and the topic. There's a synthesis essay years ago about what someone needs to consider when they are creating a monument. And, you know, always monuments are important to people, but now put that into the context of today. Well, we see right in front of us people in protest tearing down monuments they disagree with. Cities all over, even incoming, are removing monuments that stood for years and years and years because of their connection to um, some aspect of the past that's offensive to the present. So, in and of itself, that the protests that are happening in the United States right now can evoke a lot of sensitive, controversial kinds of feelings. But the idea of how do we decide what goes into creating a monument, what should be considered, that takes this issue that has lots of sensitivity and emotion and it grounds it in something a little less emotional, a little less sensitive. So that's something you have to consider as well. Um, so the template is here and there's instructions on what to do. Click the links because they bring you to things that you can use. And then the template follows here. Okay. Um, I think that's everything. As far as writing a synthesis essay, it's kind of like writing um, a research paper because you're going to be integrating multiple sources into your paper. So when you think about the rhetorical analysis, and we've built everything around, we have a claim, we have subclaims, we use evidence, and we use commentary to prove and develop our subclaims. It's the same thing, but now instead of analyzing what an author's purpose is, you are agreeing or disagreeing or qualifying some aspect within that prompt. So if we go back to the prompt, it says, synthesize information from at least 3 of the sources and incorporate it into a coherent, well-developed essay that identifies the key issues associated with the locavore movement and examine their implications for the community. So this type of question, as you answer it, your evidence would be evidence that would support what you identify as the key issues, evidence that support what you examine as the implications. You also want to consider a counter if you can. And that can be as simple as a short little paragraph that says, some argue that blah, blah, blah. And then you respond with, you know, a rebuttal, and your rebuttal then would go into further evidence to support your idea. So you can even take your counters directly from the sources themselves. Okay. I hope this has helped. Thanks.